Great. Well, welcome everybody to this fifth International Repair Cafe conference that's jointly being organised by the Centre for Sustainable Design at UCA and the Repair Cafe International Foundation with help from UKR funding to make the event happening. This is the fifth in a series of events we've been running over the years, and they seem to be getting increasingly popular. As some of you may have heard me say earlier, over 175 people had signed up for this event, and we had to sort of close that at 1 o'clock. So my name is Martin Charter. I'm Professor of Innovation and Sustainability at the Centre for Sustainable Design and the founder of the Farnham Repair Cafe that recently received a King's Award for voluntary service in the UK, and we've, like many of you, run many repair cafes, and we're up beyond 100 now. So we're active like you guys, dealing with a lot of the challenges. But just a couple of points before we go on. The ground rules are: please stay muted. Please put any questions in the chat, concise as possible, and we will try and pick up as many questions as we can afterwards. And the session is being recorded, so you should be able to listen to it, and many perhaps members of your teams might like to listen to it. The Centre for Sustainable Design has been looking and working on circular economy and sustainable innovation issues since 1995, and we're particularly also interested from a research perspective in circular economy and repair cafes, and so that's our sort of research interest in the area, and we have a couple of colleagues who will be presenting some of their research today. The structure of today's event is particularly looking at clothing repair. That's an emerging topic at a sort of a European level. There's quite a lot of new policy being in development within the European Commission that will focus in on issues like durability, repairability, but that is going to take some time to flow through. But there is now policy activity in the area. So we're really going to showcase a few presentations on that area. And then an emerging area that Martin and I are very keen to push forward to showcase new research and new projects, particularly from higher education. And we've got a range of very interesting speakers from the US and Europe. And I'll now pass it on across to Martin. Hopefully I can get the technology working. So hopefully that works. Your slides come up, Martin.
Are they already visible for everyone?
Yep, all good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so I'll start. My name is Martine Postma. I'm founder of Repair Cafe International Foundation. And as you know, we're based in Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and we spread the Repair Cafe concept from here. And it's great to see so many of you today here on this fifth International Repair Cafe webinar. We had hundreds of people signed up. There are 100 in the call now, so welcome everyone. This is a wonderful opportunity to catch up, to exchange experiences, to learn from each other, and to get information with which you can make your repair cafe even more relevant in your local community. Today, I think we have a very interesting program. We're going to talk about textile repair and about research. But before we start, I have some information to share about what we at Repair Cafe International see emerge around repair. So next slide, please. So the first thing is that the network keeps on growing, and this growth even speeds up. We have now over 3,600 locations worldwide in more than 50 countries, and that's over 400 more than last summer. And it's the biggest growth in a year so far. So this proves that repair is gaining momentum, and that is not the only proof we have, for this fact is reflected in other developments too. Next slide, please. For here in the Netherlands, regional authorities organized a national event about repair in February. And this was the first time for something like this to happen. And the goals were to inform regional officials about the subject and tell them and show them how they can promote repair at a regional and a local level. And they used slogans like, "Discover the power of repair." So this means that they're serious about it. Also, there was a national campaign recently kicked off called "The Whole of the Netherlands is Repairing." And both these things are clear signs that authorities are becoming more focused on repair and on the possibilities and the need to promote it. And we see that repair cafes play an important role in such events and campaigns. And that's not surprising, since repair cafes are the most visible repair activities, so they're bound to be involved in everything around promoting repair. Next slide, please. There are also various projects from municipalities to avoid working products or products that are not seriously broken to be discarded as waste. And this is a big problem. And I was confronted with this personally last summer when we tested a repair training in Amsterdam. We developed a training to teach people how to repair electrical appliances. And for that, naturally, we needed broken appliances. So we got permission from the municipality to take these items from a recycling station. So that's what you see in the photo on the left. That's supposedly broken products in the back of my car. But after cleaning and testing these products, many of them actually turned out to be working normally. That's the ones on the right. So several municipalities in the Netherlands are currently investigating the scope of this problem and trying to find a solution by redirecting, for instance, working products to secondhand stores and having the slightly broken ones repaired. Now, the last step is not so easy, for they're struggling with the business case and also with a lack of repairers. But at least they see the problem, which is an important step. Next slide, please. And there's another example of the growing focus on repair from the authorities. We see options emerge for repair activities in a more commercial environment. So I'm not talking about commercial repair then, but about offering volunteer repair services within shopping centers. The photo on the left is from a permanent repair shop in a large shopping center in Utrecht, is a city in the Netherlands. It's called The Repair Desk, and this is a store which is open every day, run by Repair Cafe volunteers who wanted to add a new initiative to the local repair infrastructure. They're supported financially by the municipality to run their activity, because the municipality wants to help change people's mindset about repair and show them that repair is a serious option too. And this is not just a development in the Netherlands. On the right, I added a screenshot of the website of a large shopping center in Paris. We were contacted by them last week about a project for this shopping center where they want to open a space for circular activities such as repair cafes. So we connected them to a repair cafe in Paris, and hopefully something will be developed there. And I'm sure there are many more other examples of similar activities in other countries that I'm not aware of. But these examples show that there is a growing interest in repair activities from many different quarters, and that the mindset around repair is actually changing. Next slide, please. And this also applies to manufacturers. Earlier this year, I spoke with product designers at Philips and Versuni, which are both producers of consumer electronics. And the designers there were very much aware of the need for repairable products. And they realized that they should push harder and make repairability one of the central requirements when designing new products. And they said that repairable design is not more difficult. It's not more expensive than non-repairable design. It just needs to be defined as a clear requirement at the very beginning of the design process. And when that's the case, the product will be repairable. So it's just a matter of intention. The manufacturer needs to really want to do it, and then it's possible. Next slide, please. And all this is to give you an overview of things that we see emerge. There is a lot of things going on. There is a lot of enthusiasm, many new projects. There's a lot of work to do at Repair Cafe International Foundation. And that's why we hired 2 new employees at the office. Here you see them. On the left is Rieneke Post, and on the right is Jasmin Stoop. They are my new colleagues. And here you see them hanging up the bunting flags at our 15th anniversary in October. We received over 500 very beautiful, unique bunting flags representing the International Repair Cafe network. So once again, thanks to everyone who took the trouble to make a flag and send it to us. They were greatly appreciated, and we still cherish them. So thank you very much. Next slide, please. Yeah, so in the coming hour, we'll be talking about textile and clothing repair. This is a subject sometimes overlooked a little. Many people think that repair cafes are only about electrical appliances, but they're not. Many repair cafes have sewers and seamstresses, textile repairers, as these photos show. They were taken at our anniversary too. The woman in the photo on the right is a volunteer repairer of Repair Cafe The Hague. And the man is a member of parliament who visited the Repair Cafe XL that day. And he had his shirt repaired. A button had come loose, and the repairer, the volunteer, showed him how to sew it back on. And I was obviously naturally happy to welcome him and show him around, tell him about our work, and tell him about the need for a more for a broader right to repair. So it was good to have a member of parliament at the celebration too. And now can we move to the last slide? This is a slide from the Repair Monitor dashboard, which you can find every day on dashboard.repairmonitor.org. As you can see, many textile products are being brought to the Repair Cafe. We see clothes, we see bags, and the success rates are extremely high. So obviously we have some very talented and very skilled textile repairers in our network. We'll hear from some of them later on. we'll hear from Susie Fromer of the Hudson Valley Repair Cafes in New York State. But first, we're going to listen to Professor Sandy Black. So Martin, could you introduce Sandy? Martin, I'm afraid you're muted.
Absolute classic. Thank you very much, Martine, and for the reminder. I'm sure Sandy won't mind me mentioning that she is a veteran of sustainable fashion. She's been there since really the 90s and earlier with her existing business and then her academic practices, and she is really one of the sort of leading lights in sustainable fashion from a sort of particularly from an SME and pragmatic design perspective. So I'll shut up and I'll pass on to Sandy.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here. And yes, I'm a professor in Centre for Sustainable Fashion at London College of Fashion. Can I have the next slide, please? Yeah. And yeah, I have published books on the subject and so on. But I really wanted to just contextualize this session a little bit and look at what I call the power of fashion from a very much a personal and cultural perspective to start with, because it's very much a communication medium that works in personal and public realms and displays all sorts of messages, and it can enhance or self-esteem. It can also make one feel uncomfortable if you're not appropriately dressed for an occasion. It can make radical statements, or people just wear fashion, they want to be cool, so these are some of the perspectives that a lot of my colleagues who work in cultural studies, there's been a lot written and published about the culture of fashion. So yes, but otherwise, from a sort of economic, environmental and social perspective, it's a massively tricky, wicked problem. It's got a lot of issues. It's a global economic powerhouse worth around $3 trillion US, but of course is amongst the top polluters of the planet in terms of water, waste and so on. And it's structurally wasteful and endemically because of fashion life cycles, the way that the system is set up. And of course that creates huge amounts of waste and environmental impact. Global supply chains, really clothing is well travelled before it gets to a shop, and it masks a lot of ethical and social justice problems. We did have, this was brought into great focus by the original by the Rana Plaza disaster in 2013, which really was a catalyst and a watershed moment, and started the fashion revolution movement, which is one of several campaigns now, co-founded by Ursula de Castro and Carrie Summers. So overconsumption and overproduction are absolutely key here. And there are some stats that only 1% of fashion of textiles are recycled into textiles, and that these things are 75% is of textiles produced is actually discarded. And Ellen MacArthur Foundation, who pioneered the sort of circularity concept, promoting that in fashion, showed with this very graphic design chart here that the production and consumption of fashion really doubled in the first 15 years of this century, and there's no evidence that it's really slowed down since, whilst utilization was declining. Next slide, please. Yeah, next slide, please, if you can. But the issues that we have in fashion. Can we have the next slide? Are we stuck?
It's moving forward at this end. It should say circularity.
Okay. Oh, right. There's one's been overlooked. I think.
I think it's on a timer. So
Oh, okay.
so I didn't remove that. So
Okay.
the one I see on my screen now
Circularity.
is now issues. Then it's flipped into solutions.
Okay. Well, some of the issues I've already talked about, pollution and overproduction and waste. So solutions are really about systemic change and new business models that we really need, and reduction in material throughput is essential. But the best thing that can be done is to reduce consumption of new garments, which is worth a lot more than any other strategy, but we can also personalize and so on. And we need circularity in material flows, but that has to be enabled by key infrastructure, which is not always not there and functioning at the moment for reuse and appropriate disposal and recirculation. We can extend the use phase of textiles and clothing, which is very important and very relevant to this particular session, and buying secondhand, which used to be called secondhand, is now more pre-loved and vintage. And Martin mentioned that there is now, we've depended on voluntary schemes, but there is now emerging legislation, but which is vitally needed in order to make a real difference here. Can I have the next slide? Is that the one that says circularity? No.
Yes.
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 Oh yeah, sorry. Yeah, so I mean the circularity has become sort of a buzzword, but really it's about maintaining materials in use as long as possible. And there is basically no way. We can't throw away stuff. Everything exists in either a technical or a natural cycle. As Michael McDonough and William Braungart suggested very much in their Cradle to Cradle book from 2002. So the sort of strategies that we need are to create, use, recirculate, recreate, regenerate. And of course, regeneration means putting more back into the system than we're taking out, whether it's energy, carbon emissions, and all sorts of any other thing that we may be doing, soil particularly. And a lot of the emerging business models that are now have become more prevalent are renting, sharing, swapping, repairing, reusing, repurposing, upcycling, and so on. And of course, in the context of here, it's about sort of wear, care, repair, rewear, and repeat that. Sorry, yeah. So just also to talk about some of the evolution of repair, that this basically has, we've always reused clothes. I mean, clothes used to be very much more valued. They used to be, we would hand them down, we would pass them on, make do and mend in times of austerity. And but this did lead to a sort of stigma emerging about repaired and reused, and association with poverty. And with the rise of consumer society post-war, it very much became more stigmatized and a two-tier system. And when I was at school, particularly, if you had something either handmade or second or repaired, it was definitely a problem. And now, though, we recognize that caring for clothes is actually caring for the environment. And just to show that you did show that some of the sort of campaigns of make, do and mend, and people were very skillful. They could make anything, for instance, by knitting, make and remake, knit and reknit, but also things like preempting repair. I thought this campaign to reinforce children's clothes was quite interesting. But of course, a lot of those skills became lost and are only being rediscovered now. The next slide, please. Just to say that, yeah, so that's the austerity. Can you show the next one? Just to show the change in status of the sort of crucial domestic sewing machine. Of course, this was revolutionary in the mid-19th century and enabled also mass production, but everybody had one of these at home virtually, and was a lot of domestic making and mending. But of course, things passed on, and those skills were lost in the consumer society. And of course, now we see the same sewing machines used as a quirky antique in these All Saints shops around the UK. Next slide, thanks. But over the period of last 15, 20 years, there have been a lot of academic and fashion activists and other initiatives that have begun to champion new ways of doing fashion, incorporating ways to extend clothes. You may have heard Kate Fletcher's a well-known author in sustainable fashion, and did a project called Local Wisdom and celebrating the craft of use over a period of time with international universities. And the craft of use celebrates creative care and repair and adaptation of clothing, individual personalization of clothing. So it was celebrating usership rather than ownership, and showing how creatively one can keep repairs going. I mean, this would be called upcycling as well. Next slide, please. So obviously, as Martine has referenced, obviously, community repair is really something that has really started to blossom. And we also have the things like sewing groups and knitting circles and people actually supporting each other to make repair and pass on skills. And that's, I think, now I'm delighted that that's now spreading so far. And there've been various pioneers also. Otto von Busch in America pioneered a concept called fashion hacktivism, where this was very much also about community repair and collaboration. And the next slide, please. Just to give one example of some extreme repair and mending, Celia Pym is an artist and practitioner who has done a lot of work with particularly with darning and visible mending, and has recently produced a book. And she's gone into communities and hospitals and helped teach people these skills. And so it's now very much, you know, the context has changed. The view of this sort of repairing and mending and darning has really changed to be personally creative. And I mean, that's really the last thing that I want. Oh, no, sorry, there's one more slide. Sorry. Next one. Yeah. So publications have now emerged, a lot of publications supporting this. I mentioned Ursula de Castro, co-founder of Fashion Revolution, Loved Clothes Last, published a few years ago, where she's really, she also operates does lots of public speaking, and she has an Instagram account where she's always celebrating and giving people tips on how to repair and adapt their clothes and upcycle. There's Well Worn, and there's also Patrick Grant's, who's not just the Sewing Bee, but had a label called Community Clothing, promoting buying less and looking after clothes more carefully. So more and more to celebrate the enjoyment of clothes through less consumption, more repair and more care. So that's all I wanted to say for the moment. If that's...
Yeah, so that's fantastic and perfectly to time, Sandy. So thank you very much. And I mean, I think that gives us a very good overview of the evolution of the issues and some of the movements and changes. And we now have Susie Fromer from the Hudson Valley Repair Cafe Network, who is going to give a case study on their experiences with clothing repair within their network of repair cafes in the US.
Hi, it's so nice to be here. It's really a pleasure. So yes, I'm the coordinator for, it's just turned 68 yesterday, 68 cafes in the Hudson Valley, which is a really big region. And I have a map that will show you, but and I'm also a jewelry repairer. That's how I got into Repair Cafe, and so that's my perspective. And of course, often I sit next to the textile people, so that's a little aside. Okay, next. So this whole network here was thanks to John Wackman, who read an article in the paper in the New York Times and then flew to meet Martine and checked it out and brought back to New Paltz, a town in upstate New York and in the Hudson Valley in 2013. And it very quickly expanded to many more towns. It is now 15 counties, 68 cafes, and also New Jersey started, and they broke off and became their own Garden State Repair Cafe. So he had just a tremendous influence in this area, and I would not be here without the work that he did, not just in building the communities and the cafes there, but also just connecting with all of you. And I'm so happy to be here. Okay, next. So this is just a little picture to see where it is, and you can see just how wide a range it is going all the way up through New York State, which is a pretty big state. Okay, next. So what is the collective impact? We can look at all of our things together because we have metrics, we're all connected. So there were 69 repair cafes held in 2022, 130 in 2023, and then 158 this last year in 2024. So just like Martine had said, just tremendous growth, really exponential growth. Average person who comes, 40 guests per cafe, each bringing about 60 items, and our metric is about 75,000. 75% of the items fixed, and 7,500 items were fixed then and saved from the landfill in 2024. And of course, more items are fixed after a cafe, purchased with parts or advice or going to another cafe in the network. Next. So this is the textile case study I put together. And I took that picture. It was just a wonderful textile. It was for Blanky, and the whole thing had been unraveled. This was based on data from 2024. And I received data back from 30 of our 67 organizers or sites, which actually represented 75 of those 158 cafes, which is 47%. So it's pretty good data. And also 27 textile repair coaches also weighed in. Next. So this is just some basic information. 100% of the cafes that responded to me had textile repair. I would say that's true almost across the board for our cafes, unless someone just can't make it, but we always try to have it. It averaged to 3.11 repair coaches doing textile repairs at a cafe. Some have more, some have less. The percentage of textile fixers who identify as female is 94%. It is quite gendered. The average number of textile repairs per cafe ended up being 17, and the average number of textile repairs allowed per guest was 2, but there's a lot of variance depending on if it's slow or very busy. Next. So we wanted to know who offered visible mending classes, and these were both during the cafe or at other times, at the library, as another initiative. 17% said they offered it, 10% said they wanted to, and then 73% of the respondents said they don't offer it. Next. And then the question was, do you offer visible mending at the cafe? 23% said they did, 77% did not answer that question. And do you get visible mending requests was another thing we wanted to know. 33% said yes, they did, and 67% did not respond to that. Next. So this was some of the feedback from fixers when we asked about visible mending and their experience with getting requests or asking to do it. Some had been asked only once. Some guests were concerned it would take too long. Sometimes the guests would only accept it 1 out of 3 times. Somebody said one time, people said it was on socks only, which isn't really visible. Some people said, fine, I just want it gone. And then other people agreed if that was the only way to fix it. So that's just a little view of that. Next. So we wanted to know if people gave sewing machine classes, the cafes, again, during or after another time. 13% said they offer it. 3% said they want to offer it. 84% said they do not offer. Next. Do you have sewing machine repair coaches who fix the machines? This is 33% mentioned it and 67% did not. And I just wanted to bring that up because I've talked to them very many times. I know the mechanical fixers and electrical and the textile, and they tend to do troubleshooting. And often with an electrical machine, the issue is more troubleshooting and user error than actually an error with the machine. And the mechanical people will sort of tear it apart, but the textile people will go through and check all the threading and all that and teach about how to do that better. So I thought that was interesting. Next. So just I wanted to know about rules for textile repairs. What were the rules? 6, out of a certain percentage said, items must be clean. Items can't be too worn. Some people said you have to bring the zipper. A lot of people said no alterations or hemming. That was the biggest one. But then they said about half of them came back and said, if the cafe is slow, they will. It's just if they don't have time, that's one rule. Next. So the question we asked was, have the textile fixers seen a decline in quality in the textiles over the years? Only 9 out of 27 respondents, or 33%, said yes, and one said yes, oh yes. She definitely recognized that. Next. We tried to discuss who had brought in repairs. It wasn't, again, the most scientific study. It definitely trended more older than younger and more women than men. Next. So these were two quotes that I had. One of them sort of highlighted that older people also tended to bring curtains, tablecloths, and household items for textile repairs, whereas younger brought more clothing, and that men seem to bring in simpler repairs than women. I'm not sure if the women are doing the simple repairs themselves. I'm not sure, but that was a comment. And the only comment, we did ask about economic background of the guests. A lot of people would not answer that or did not feel comfortable, but we have a big network and it's a lot of range of different wealthy communities. And so one person said that the only thing she had seen was the location changes, that in wealthier communities, she was doing things like moth holes and broken zippers, and in less wealthy community, patching jeans, turning collars, and bedding. So much more utilitarian things. Next. These were just what fixes were the most typical: rips, hemming, knit, repair, and darning was the most, and we do have a lot of people who do that. A little bit elastic, buttons, zipper replacement or repair, and I'll talk about that in a second. Seam line rips and patching holes. Next. So these are just some pictures of the actual textiles going on. This is 4 people working together in Tarrytown, New York at a quilt. And on the right is Michelle Elise, who was our zipper fixer. And she was able to save this giant 3-person tent from the landfill with just actually changing out the zipper box. So that's the highlighting of zipper repair rather than zipper replacement. And I posted a link in our chat because she is really amazing. And she did a YouTube video for us. And I put it on our Repair Cafe channel, and it is there in the chat because it is, like I said, I'm jewelry and I can do it, and it's amazing. It's kind of magic. Next. Here we have someone darning a sock on a light bulb, and here we have Holly, who is John's partner, doing hand sewing. She's also a jeweler. Next. So a lot of stuffed animals. Next. Dolls. Someone brought in a flag. Next. Again, here's a sewer looking at a sewing machine, and we had some patches made, some no-sew patches, which are great for puffer jackets, which also come in with holes a lot. Next. This is one of our fixers, one of the few male fixers. He is actually a teacher at a technical school, and he did bring his students, and he does teach on the job, which we adore that. And here on the right is one of our very talented textile, jewelry, and more coaches who is repairing a sewing machine for a sewer, and I love that. Next. Change in textile repair rates, 44% said no change, 4% said decrease, but 52% did say increase. Next. Repair versus teach. Many more people say they repair than teach. Next. These are some of the reasons when people do get to teach: if it's not too busy, if the guest is willing, if they're interested or able. We have a lot of older guests, and so that becomes really a stopping point to teaching sometimes if they don't have the hand or eye abilities to do that. And also, they need to learn to sew a button on, and so they do it, and they try to show the machine assistance if they can, and they have them do some prep while waiting or watching. Next. This is when they just repair. If there's a lack of guest interest, if there isn't time, the guest doesn't have a machine at home and the fix is a sewing machine repair, it's not going to be helpful for them they won't be able to take anything away. If there's not enough space or fixers, or when repair only is what the guest has been expecting. Next. So here are some pictures of our many sewers. Here's some darning. We just have so many people, and it's just such a pleasure. Next. And so we just have a lot of variety, a lot of machines, a lot of different machines. Next. And we have some hemming. Just again depends on the cafe. And the woman on the left is also the cafe organizer. Next. And we use the Singers all the time. They're fabulous. They're great for jeans and thick fabric, and they don't tend to break. Next. And here are some of my friends. My friend Terry is a darner, excellent, and Linda on the right is a sewer, and I convinced her to start a cafe in her town. Next. And that's it. That was just a little view of case study of the textile repairs, but I'm happy to, you can always email me or contact me with any questions. Martin, you're muted.
I put the camera on, but not the mic. So thanks very much again. Fantastic sticking to time. Great, we're on track. And I think that started to put some of the practical context for what Sandy gave. So that's, showing the sort of level and variety of activity going, but also I think interestingly this teaching element coming in and around, as a sort of additional service, or when things are a bit slower, linked into some of the sort of mentoring maybe aspects as well. So that's excellent. So we've got Beth, who's doing a PhD related to clothing repair within the context of repair cafes and also an engagement of young people. And we hope to have 10 minutes for questions at the end. So please put your short, succinct questions in the chat, and Martine's team will try and, will pull out a few interesting questions. So over to Beth, if I can get the technology moving.
Hi, I'm Beth Clinton. I'm a PhD student at the University of the Coast Guard, and I'm researching repair cafes. And we'll be talking just a bit about clothing repair and engagement with young people. Next slide, please. So clothing repair is done in most repair cafes. According to the global surveys, it's usually within the top 5 most common items brought in for repair. Yet there's a significant lack of research into clothing specifically. As out of the little research done on repair cafes, there's been much more of a previous focus on electrical. So for example, out of 15 pages of Google Scholar results, there's only one published academic paper with the word textile or clothing in the title alongside repair cafe. In relation to engaging with young people, whilst we know from research and talking to repair cafes that some are making efforts to engage young people in the UK, there's no formal academic research been done yet into this area in the UK. So any research that has been done looks more on organising repair cafes within universities and isn't really focused on the engagement side, more the organisation. And again, it is usually focused on computing rather than the textile side. Next slide, please. So we're increasingly living in a throwaway culture, where as a society we put little value on. We often put little value on items, and they're disregarded as a convenience, as soon as they don't function the right way or they no longer match a certain aesthetic. And this idea is becoming increasingly normalised as overconsumption continues to be promoted, particularly for young people. I do think social media has a large part on this in encouraging overconsumption. Anytime you go online, you can almost guarantee that you'll come across these huge clothing hauls, people promoting mass production of these unbelievably cheap clothing. And we've moved from having these really identifiable 2 seasons of clothing as like summer and winter to having the 4 seasons. Now not even really being able to identify.
I'm very sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but lots of comments, people comment that you're hard to hear. Maybe you can slow down a bit.
Thank you.
I'm very sorry.
Yeah, so we've moved to not even really being able to identify different seasons of clothing due to this incredibly fast-paced change in trends, micro trends and aesthetics. So as a result of this, a lot of young people are seeing this and potentially recognizing it as a normal way to consume. Yet we know that this is deeply unsustainable. But it also can be very hard to promote repair when clothes are being produced with such unrepairable designs and low quality materials which don't last through the wash more than a few times, and can be purchased and replaced at such low cost, resulting in people giving very low value to just clothing. Additionally, repair skills aren't being passed down to families as they used to be. And in the UK, teaching clothing repair and mending isn't part of the national curriculum. So if young people are taught sewing skills, it's completely up to the individual schools and teachers. And as schools and teachers, as you know, are already stretched for time, the schools that do have kind of repair cafe style clubs or involvement tend to be private schools. So it's not really a universally accessible option within the UK. Next slide, please. So as repair, as we're speaking about, is getting some more traction. There are a lot of brands starting to introduce repair initiatives. And there's a few kind of different, both paid and free approaches to this, such as putting on repair workshops, providing repair guides, doing in-store repairs, post-away repairs, and there's now a repair delivery service as well. So just look at some examples. Next slide, please. So Primark has introduced free repair workshops in some of its stores across Europe. They operate in a similar manner to a repair cafe in that they teach basic clothing repair skills. They haven't hosted that many in the UK, and they do seem to be having more success in workshops elsewhere, such as in France and the Netherlands. Next slide, please. Patagonia, a particularly well-known brand for their ethics. They have a wide range of repair guides on their website to encourage people to repair things at home, but also offer a free post-away repair service. And in some stores as well, they do offer in-store repairs for free, but not in the UK, but in some of their bigger stores across Europe. So John Lewis are a more recent addition to the list. So they trialled a partnership with Simpsons and a few stores in the UK last year, and are now rolling out a nationwide partnership, offering easy access to paid repair and tailoring services. Next slide, please. And so the last example, Sojo is a relatively new company. They operate a paid delivery repair service, so you can book a repair on their website. Somebody comes and collects the item from your house, or you can drop it to their counter in Selfridges in London. The item's then repaired and returned to you. So it starts from around £5 for smaller repairs. So it's an interesting new paid repair service. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm just going to talk a little bit through my actual research project. So I'm looking at unlocking youth engagement in repair cafes, a study of clothing repair in the north and the East Midlands of England. Next slide. So from context, I'm looking at clothing repair within repair cafes and connecting and engaging more young people in both clothing repair and repair cafes themselves throughout the north and the Midlands. Some reasoning, as I mentioned, increasing amounts of extreme fast fashion and normalising a throwaway culture. Very little published research with focus on clothing and textile repair in repair cafes. And the demographics of repair cafes from surveys have shown that repairers do tend to be older. So it's essential for the repair cafe movement for more young people to be involved to secure long-term continuity. And finally, I chose these areas as the Midlands and the North have a rich history with textile production. Yet, despite that, there's significantly less repair cafes in these areas, as most do tend to be concentrated in the south of the country. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are my research questions. I'll just go through them quickly. So looking at approaches to clothing repair, key barriers, the most effective resources for engaging young people, and the impact of engaging on both young people and repair cafes. Next slide, please. As for methodology, I'm going to be supporting with the fourth global repair cafe survey. Focus groups with clothing repairers and teachers and organisers, surveying young people, providing resources, and then doing some action research with youth groups and schools, and then finally some follow-up interviews with teachers, organisers, and with young people. Next slide, please. So the outcome of this, I'm hoping to help with the continuation of repair cafes by encouraging more young people in and providing some personalised support for schools and trying to shape attitudes towards waste and circular living. Next slide, please. And yeah, so that's just some of the next steps. So working on a pilot for the global survey, finding people to participate, and then starting to actually create the toolkits and resources. Okay, and I think that's everything from me. Thank you.
Thanks, Beth. And I think the reason why the audio was a bit down is that Beth is calling in from a conference that may not have the best Wi-Fi. So I think your messages came across, I think, quite clearly. And again, people can listen back if on the recording if they didn't pick things up. So we've now got time for a few questions. Sorry, I don't know the names of Martine's new team members, but I can see a smiling face there from at least one of the ladies. So I don't know if you want to highlight any questions that's emerged. You're all
Yeah, definitely. There are no specific questions for Sandy, Susie, or Beth. However, there is a general question where this webinar will be posted after the recording.
So what we'll be doing is to essentially upload a link to the conference webpage, but we also share it with Martine to circulate it within her blog that goes off around the world. So it'll be available through several sources. Maybe we can sort of think up of a couple of questions, or I'll think up a couple of questions.
There's one more question actually.
Oh, right, good.
For Martina, yeah.
Yeah.
Who pays the rent for the repair cafe in Utrecht, the reparatiebalie? How is this funded?
This is funded by the municipality. So they have a subsidy from Utrecht municipality, because it's one of the goals of the municipality too, to have more repairs and to focus the attention of the public more on repairing. So they want this service to be visible in the shopping center, so that people can meet a repair or be inspired by the idea of repairing when they're in a shop, actually.
So it's a question to Susie around zippers. So from your survey, did you communicate beforehand, or do all your people with textile repairs bring in a zipper? So
I think it depends. I mean, everyone in the network should know we have this workshop and that there are other ways to do it, but not everyone knows how to do it. There were a few people that said zipper, and so I think they make sure the organizer of that individual cafe makes that clear. We all have a little bit of supplies, but obviously it's got to be the right color, it's going to be the right length, it's going to be the right zipper. So it is important, if you can, to bring in your own parts. I don't know if you guys have heard of the store Joann's Fabric, but it has now gone under, and there's whole subreddits about people being very upset by this. So, I mean, that was like the major craft place to get things. So it's just getting harder and harder to go to the store and get something that day.
So whilst we have you on the line, a couple of questions just from my own experience is, perhaps you might elaborate on perhaps some of the teamwork that goes on between the mechanicals and electricals and the sewing ladies on sewing machines. We've certainly seen if there's a TV program on sewing, we will sometimes then get 5 sewing machines in.
Oh.
So is that something that they just sort of naturally come together? Do you have any comments on that sort of teamwork aspect?
We certainly do have a lot of machines that come in, I will say that. The singers are very simple. If they do ever need repair, that's a mechanical that can happen. The others, I think I've been coached by textile folks to send it to them first, to troubleshoot, to vet, to make sure it really needs electrical repair and it's not just the string going in the wrong place. So we try to do that first. And then if there's an issue, some of them are still very, very qualified at repairing, but sometimes we'll then have to pass it off to an electrical.
And just another quick question. do each of your repair cafes within your clothing stations, does the core organizer or the core organizing team, do they fund consumable items, or do the volunteers bring their own threads and machines and other the other equipment and consumables?
Typically the consumables are given by the cafe, that everyone has like a little stash and a little, typically all of our cafes have little piles of that stuff. It's pretty rare that someone, now if it's a specific button, if you want it to be perfect, you should bring it, because we have those button bins, but it's not necessarily to match. But typically most cafes have a big pile of stuff. I mean, that's how we do it. Yeah.
I have a question for you too, Susie.
Yeah.
You talked about visible mending classes and sewing machine classes. Is that actually, do you mean like a course or
a casual course at the library, like a community event for free? I attended one actually that was put on by the Ossining folks. It was not the cafe, but the green organization that does that cafe. And it was lovely. It was at a brewery and I really enjoyed it because I never get to do that. So, and there is definitely an interest, and I do feel like textiles and in particular visible mending is something that brings in younger people. So
yeah,
we really appreciate that. And I always try to mention to people that these things are possible. A friend in Los Angeles just went to her first cafe in Pasadena and was like, it's so amazing to see your worlds crossing. I used to live there. And I reached out to her and I said, you can do crochet at a cafe, because I know she's a crocheter and she didn't realize that. So she may get involved.
Yeah, that could be a nice addition to the Repair Cafe too. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And just another quickie. Sorry, you've got all the questions, Susie, at the moment. Is actually just something that struck me recently. Certainly from our experience in our individual Repair Cafe, we're seeing our clothing and team growing. And indeed, we've had to put a cap now on the number of volunteers overall. But one of the things that, in just thinking about it, is most of the people on the sewing team are people who've either had a personal interest or developed their own skills, either, later in life or into retirement. And we've only got one lady who's sort of does clothing in some form as a sort of as a small business, if you like. What's typically the profile of your clothing?
I'm, and this is off the top of my head, I would say a third are professional in some way. And I mean, especially where I live at the very bottom of the network, which is very close to New York City. And we have one of our textile repair coaches is a textile conservator at the Metropolitan. So it's like, and she comes and knits and darns for people, but like, just amazing. I think she works on medieval tapestries at the Met. So, so there's I would say like a third. Michelle, who's the zipper woman, actually works in clothing, in the clothing department for film and TV in Hudson Valley. And she actually did something at for the ballet. I mean, we have just an incredible, but a lot of people are just sewers and just do it on their own. So it's a range always.
Yeah. So that New York Met example is a very Repair Cafe.
She saw it and she loved it, right? I mean, he has to speak to you, but he spoke to her. So.
Right. I don't know, Martine, if you've got any more questions, or if not, move on to the next section.
No,
well, there are some.
Sorry. No, you go ahead.
I see that there are two more questions from. Before we go along, maybe it's nice to do these questions still. And the first one is from Joanne Doyle, and she asks, is it appropriate to display these type of publications at repair cafes? I think this one is directed to Martine.
So what is the question again?
If these types of repair and recite publications are appropriate cafes. I think it's about all the publications that are mentioned in the presentations, if it's okay to display them at repair cafes.
Yeah, sure, but all the presentation will be shared afterwards, so they'll be publicly available, and the recording will be posted on YouTube, I think, so people can follow it afterwards.
Okay. Amazing. And the second question is, I think, to Beth. And this question is from Cordelia, and she asks, what are your suggestions for engaging young people and getting them to come to repair cafes?
So what I'm kind of looking at is how to do that by going through like other means. So going into like youth groups and schools to try and get that interest in repair first, and then connect them with the repair cafes. So I'm hoping to get some local textile repairers from repair cafes near to the youth groups that I engage with to come into the groups, into the schools, and to connect kind of like that. So through the other organisations. But there's lots of different ways. That's the main thing I'm kind of focusing on. But I'm hoping through the resources to get some better ideas at what works well, and what helps with engagement.
Yeah, just a couple of quick points before passing across to Martine for the next section. I think the visible mending point is really interesting in terms of engaging, potentially engaging young people. What certainly the challenges we face in the UK around engaging young people, particularly as repairers, we have quite strict safeguarding laws, which means that you have to have sort of policies to engage under 18s. So, at least within UK context, for example, in our repair cafe, the under 18 has to come in with a parent. So there are sort of certainly, again, UK, there are various policies that one has to adhere to. I'm not sure if it is as strict in other countries, because I have noticed in the Netherlands, you seem to have a lot of young people activity going on. And I know one of our colleagues in Taiwan, she runs repair academies for young people over the summer. So there may be different regulations, in different countries, but certainly in the UK, it's quite strict. So I don't know, Martine, if you want to move into the next section now. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's okay. In this next section, we're going to talk about research. We're going to hear from several people who've been doing repair cafe research and repair related research. The Center of Sustainable Design for Sustainable Design has been doing repair cafe research for many years. And we're going to hear from Peter Counter. He's a PhD researcher in Farnham in the UK. And we're also going to hear from two groups of students in the Netherlands who have been focusing on repair cafes in the past months. And we thought it would be nice to give them the opportunity to share with the network what they've been doing. For this shows that there are many different ways to be involved in repair cafe research and many angles to approach the subject from. And these are not the only projects. At Repair Cafe International Foundation, we're also involved in various research projects ourselves with a broader scope. For instance, like how can we take away fixophobia, the notion that people are afraid to start repairing because they know too little about it. And another project is how can we stimulate more people to maintain products in a better way. And we did a small research among Dutch repair cafes ourselves, and it turns out that repair cafes play an important role here. Many of them already advise on how to treat products, how to take care of them, what kind of maintenance tasks to perform regularly. And it's this personal approach that makes the advice work. Someone telling you in person, showing you what to do and how to do it. And when it comes to stimulating maintenance, people often think of technical solutions first, like a code on the display of a product to indicate that you need to do something, or let the owner scan a QR code to get repair advice online. This is all very good, but in this particular project, our role has been to stress the importance of personal advice, such as Repair Cafe volunteers give in their repair cafes. So this is just to say that there's a lot going on in policy development, in research, and also in everyday practice. And the community repair movement, the Repair Cafe movement, is in the middle of all these developments. And all of you make the subject visible in your community, and that's so valuable. So thank you for that. And now I suggest let's hear more about research, and let's go on to the next speaker.
Thank you, Martine. And without further ado, we'll pass across to Peter.
Yes, hello everybody. Yes, my name's Peter. Could I have the next slide, please, Martin? So I'm retired. I'm a volunteer at Martin's Farnham Repair Cafe. I spent most of my working life in IT, most of it with IBM and latterly with the UK Health Service, running their big systems for them. But now I'm doing this PhD over the next 3 years. We're 6 months in now. And I've really started out with two key questions. One was about how repair cafes are set up and managed. As you know, they're all different because they're all entirely autonomous. And although there are some how-to guides available, they tend to be the opinion of whoever the person was that wrote that guide, rather than a kind of structured and clear walk through all the different ways that you could run a repair cafe, all the policies you could have, the legal arrangements that you could have, and so on. So I'm trying to put together something a bit more authoritative and comprehensive on what really works in the field. And so that's on how they're set up and managed. And then the second part was about the data about repairs that are collected. And there is really not very much. Got some stats on this in a moment, but there isn't much that is collected. There is some data that's captured on the repairs that are done, but I'd like to see what can be done to get more, and how it's being used. So those are the two things that I started with, and found that I really ought to work out, well, who are the repair cafes then? And I should start with the UK. So next slide, Martin. So I thought, well, this will be easy. I go to Martine's site here. I zoom in on the UK, and there are about 400 repair cafes listed there. But I did start to notice that several people, even some of the local ones here, and certainly a very large number of the ones in Wales, didn't seem to be on that list. So the next slide, please. So I found this lot, who are the Community Repair Network. This is a UK organisation that lists out all the community repair groups, or at least that's their plan. There are about 730 people on their list. Most of them are repair cafes, but there's a lot of fixers and men's sheds and hacker spaces and those sorts of things. Still, there's only about 80 in Wales of all kinds, and I know there are at least 130 in Wales from the Repair Cafe Wales people. So next slide, please. So then I started to look at the data from the Open Repair Alliance, and although they only do electricals, they do publish a couple of 100,000 rows in October about repairs that were done. And as you see, about halfway down, Repair Cafe International, Martine contributes her data from the Repair Monitor. She's the largest contributor there, and the Repair Cafe Wales. But you'll see at the bottom in the Restart project, they provide their Fixometer module. And it's used by, if you see right at the bottom, Cambridgeshire Repair Cafe Network and the Hampshire Repair Cafe Network. We're starting to think about, well, what are these networks and who are they? So next slide, please. So all this made me think, well, how do you define a repair cafe? What is a repair cafe? Most of the definitions that you see are really just descriptions which would fit any kind of commercial community repair organization. So the alternatives for defining a list of repair cafes, we could just use ARCIF's registered list, but as I've said, that's definitely not all the repair cafes. We could go with all the organisations that call themselves repair cafes, but I found several instances, even just locally here, of places that don't call themselves repair cafes, but if you walked in, you would recognise it at once. So what about anyone that behaves like a repair cafe according to a set of rules? And the rules might be, well, it's a volunteer organisation with no charges, although some I've seen have a price list for donations. For each type of repair, there's an amount of money, and you think, well, that's probably collected at the door. Is that really a donation? What about regularity? Not an ad hoc thing, but it's got to be a regular thing. Well, it is at least once a year enough, is a question. There's a wide range of items can be repaired. Well, I've come across some that only do textiles, for example, or there's many that only do electricals. Keen to look at the community focus, either what's the repair cafe about and what it's for. But how would you measure that? So this has turned into, instead of just a little piece of work at the start to say, well, let's just list out the repair cafes, this has turned into a piece of work that says, no, let's try and work out what is a repair cafe and what isn't. Let's try and gather some people's opinions about that, and let's look at some of the networks that are gathering them together. So next slide, please. And then, so my list of repair cafes currently that I've got have been deduplicated from the various places where I've got lists. I've got 707 in the UK that are definitely repair cafes at the moment, 406 with ARCIF, 142 with Repair Cafe Wales, 159 others that are either called repair cafes or included in networks lists. And there are 214 other community repair organisations, some restarters and men's sheds and so on, but 162 still, which I haven't got round to naming yet. So how many repair cafes are there in the UK? Well, I think there's at least 750. So it's growing, I think, even faster than we thought it might be. So next slide, please. So onto the data. One of the surveys that was mentioned found that 88% of repair cafes do record data. I don't know why that's not 100%, unless they're only just starting up. Excellent idea to record all the data that you do, for all the repairs that you do. But only, this is my recollection, my idea now is that there are only 3% of repairs are currently published. Of all the repairs that have ever been done in repair cafes, I think less than 3% have actually been recorded and published, which is a shame, because if you were to tell me, for example, that you've repaired a toaster, that wouldn't be all that interesting. But if you tell me the data about 100,000 toasters, I can then tell you which ones are reliable, which ones can be repaired, which manufacturers give spare parts and service manuals and so on. So the both ARCIF and the Open Repair Alliance do aggregate local repair data, but it's difficult to do. It's in different formats, in different standards, and there's some technical issues. And the data tends to be, particularly in the ORA data, is a bit lowest common denominator and is not very rich or comprehensive. So the data is important because it's used for grounding media stories in facts. I always want some facts to quote. The more media stories about repair, the better. Planning campaigns, it's already been used, the data in the right to repair, and for drafting legislation in several countries, and of course for holding manufacturers to account. So aggregating the data and publishing it's an important thing to do, and we need to do better. So next slide. So like Beth, I've got a whole bunch of methods that I'm proposing to use with interviews and pilots and so on. But one of the key things is to do another global survey. We've had these 3 global surveys so far, one in 2014 and one in 2016. Both of those were run by Martin and one of his colleagues, Scott Keeler. And then the one in 2020 was run again by Martin and some people from Manchester University. So next slide, please. So it's time to have a new global survey. We're 5 years on. Beth and I will be administering the survey and writing up the findings. We're planning for it to be around October this year. We'll keep some of the questions the same, obviously, because we want to make sure we can do comparisons and trends, but there will be specific questions which relate to Beth's research about textiles and young people and my research. And we'll also be asking you whether you're willing to participate further in the research. And my asks in those for that further work is any historical data that you possess, any of the 97% of the data that we haven't got yet. If you've got that somewhere in any format, I will be very pleased to have it. And I will guarantee that we will consolidate it and put it together and publish it. And I'm also, of course, interested on the management side for any additional information that you have around the management of your repair cafes and how you do it and what's worked and so on. So that might be interviews or might be documents that you'd be willing to share. Now, it's worth saying that across the other 3 repair cafe surveys, we started off, I think, with the first one had a 20-something% response rate, and that went down over the next 2 to less than 10% for the last one. So please, when you see this come out in October, please help us by completing the survey, and we will be very happy if you will help us, and not just us, but everybody else who's doing research into repair cafes. So thank you so much.
Need to unmute myself. So thank you very much, Peter, and certainly we can get all the data you're looking for, it will be a major movement forward. So
It will.
And we're looking to collaborate with, or Peter's looking to collaborate with as many people as possible, and we look forward to the update as we move forward. So I think that moving forward, we've now got get the technology moving. Is it Theo? Theo from Leiden?
Yes, hello.
Yes, it's Theo. Yeah. Hi, it's Theo Harris. Yes, you can call me Harris. It's easier. Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
over to you.
Yeah.
Yes,
Also,
I'm
I will present
Teresa.
with my colleague Teresa. She is part of the team, so we will present it together. So she will begin.
Exactly. So yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa, and yeah, as Hannah said, we will present our project together. We're speaking in behalf of a project group from Leiden University in the Netherlands. And yeah, we can go to the next slide. And there you see, yeah, what our background is. So Hades is from Greece and he's studying linguistics. I'm from Germany. I'm studying philosophy and public administration. And in our team is also Sixt from France. She's also studying public administration. And Axel, who studies governance of sustainability. He's from Malta. And Iji from China, who's studying corporate law. And all of us are together in a project group for an extracurricular program at our university. And we do this program to develop ourselves and to gain practical skills. And yeah, we will present to you a project that we're doing for this program together with the Repair Cafe Foundation. And we chose this project because we want to make a positive impact in the field of sustainability. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so as I said, we work together with the Repair Cafe Foundation, and we advise them how to better involve experts into repair cafes. So yeah, people who were not born in the Netherlands, for example, but who came there to work or because their partner works in the Netherlands and therefore they moved to the Netherlands. And we focus on repair cafes in Den Haag. And yeah, maybe some of you are wondering now why we're focusing exactly on experts. And this is because we believe that, yeah, if you involve experts in repair cafes, this will have benefits for 3 parties. So first of all, the repair cafes provide experts with opportunities to socialize and to get in touch with local culture. And of course, experts will also get their broken things repaired for free, just like everyone. But also we believe that individual repair cafes will benefit from having experts as volunteers. because yeah, generally experts are younger than the average volunteer in repair cafes, at least in the Netherlands. And also experts are more likely to spread the word about repair cafes in experts communities. And I think we all know that spreading the word is, yeah, the most likely, the most effective way of promotion. So yeah, this is a way to actually reach the expert community and to make repair cafes more known there. Yeah, also we believe that the Repair Cafe Foundation, and so yeah, the environment and the whole project, the whole idea, will benefit from having experts as volunteers, because once experts leave a country, they might spread the word in other countries, and maybe they will even found a repair cafe themselves in the country where they go to next. Yeah, and now that we know why we want to attract experts, let's have a look at how we approach our project that you will see in the next slide. Yeah, so it is divided in 3 parts. First of all, we did a research phase. Now we're in a design phase, and then we will implement what we're designing. And what we are designing is a workshop in which experts learn from experienced volunteers how to repair a broken thing that they have. So yeah, we're designing yeah, a teaching community event that also came up already in Susie's presentation, but also in Beth's presentation, and also in the discussion that we already had. Yeah, and we will come back to the workshop later, because first of all, we want to explain to you why we chose to implement such a workshop. And this Harris will explain to you.
Yes, hello everyone. If we can move to the next slide, please. Yes, so how we started our research. The first thing we did is come in contact with expat groups that we knew around in the Netherlands. We conducted some interviews in person with them, and from that we learned that Facebook was their preferred means of communication regarding social media, at least. We also learned that they really had a willingness to learn more about repairing, to learn more about practical skills, and they also had a need to meet new people, to make new friends in the new country they were. In the next stage, we decided to visit some repair cafes ourselves in The Hague, in Leiden, in Amsterdam, and other places around the Netherlands. We talked with people that go to these cafes. We talked with people that run these cafes. We talked with the volunteers themselves. And what we learned, of course, is that every repair cafe in the Netherlands is unique. But in all of them, we saw a very welcoming and very productive atmosphere. We saw a lot of people attending every time there is an event. But we also noticed, as expats ourselves, as people that do not speak Dutch, that there may be a language barrier, which is a point I will come back to later. Can we please change slide? Yes, so after that, we decided to conduct a bigger survey. So we sent a questionnaire in Facebook groups, obviously following what we learned from the previous steps. And I am here to present 3 of the most interesting questions, or at least questions that we believe will be most interesting to all of you. So the first question was, how would you prefer to know about a repair cafe event near you? And again, their answer verified what we found in our individual interviews as well, the fact that Facebook is their preferred method of communication, with Instagram coming out second. But the second question had to do with what other activities do you think should be coupled with repair cafes? And of course, overwhelmingly, they responded that they wanted repair lessons, which on the one hand verifies our prior research that they really want to get more technical expertise, but also they gave us many ideas. The second answer here are language exchange classes, which is also quite an interesting concept. But I believe that the third question is the one that will appeal to a lot of people here. What hinders you from participating in a repair cafe? Of course, the first answer is lack of time. That is something to be expected. But again, we found that the second most popular answer is language barriers. We've personally found that a lot of volunteers could not adequately speak English, at least fluently, in order to socialize and have a conversation with people that frequent in repair cafes, at least expats. Can we please move on to the next slide? So, to attract people, we have found that there is a need to incentivize volunteers, via reward programs or like participation certificates, LinkedIn appraisal, or other methodology, but also running social.
Does stopping at 10 really make the difference? I think it's the length of time that they're on these things. I noticed with
sorry,
our
I was distracted by, yeah, okay.
Oh, it's you. I thought it was somebody else. Okay.
Yeah, it was not me. I don't know who it was.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. No worries.
Anyway, so yeah, to attract people, we find that there is a need to incentivize volunteers, but also to run social media campaigns focusing on sustainability, maybe success stories of volunteers that after working and gaining prior experience to a repair cafe, they found a professional job working based on something that they used to work on in a repair cafe, etc. We created a mind map with all the different ideas. We can show it in the next slide. It's chaotic. We don't expect you, of course, to read it, but this goes to show how many different ideas and approaches we had, but we decided to follow one specific route of research. So in the next slide, we will see what we came up with. We will design a workshop in The Hague. This will happen next month, where we will, in accordance with some volunteers and the help from our mentor, both at the university and from the Repair Cafe Foundation, we will provide repair expertise and knowledge covering the practical lessons that expats want to have. We will also try to framework repair cafes in a greater move towards a need for a sustainable future, and perhaps try to market that via social media as well. And lastly, we will try to forge new connections between volunteers, repairers, and the expat community, people that will attend our event. Can we move to the next slide, please? So yes, on behalf of everyone in the team, I would like to thank you for paying attention to us. If you have any questions, feel free to ask. Also, we have included an email where you can send us more, whether you need more information. And we will also have a report ready in summer that's asked from our university anyway. So if you want access to that, we would also be interested to share that, of course. So thank you for listening.
Thank you thank you both very much for the presentation, and again keeping to time. It's an interesting area that has been not explored as much as maybe it could be. So I'd be certainly going to be interested in your results that emerge from that. So the last part of the formal presentation is Leah and maybe team, I'm not sure, from University of Applied Sciences in Groningen, about a gaming tool that they are in the process of developing, have developed, not sure. But we will hear from the team now, and then we'll be open for discussion. So try and move to the next slide.
Yes, wonderful. Actually, not Leah, but yeah, it's me, Nick. Hello. I'm going to present what we have. As it was already said, we are 5 students from Groningen in the Netherlands, and we create a game, which is called Patch a Planet. If you could go to the next slide, please. Yes. So short introduction of the team. Hi, I'm Nick. I'm the producer and game and level designer of the team. We have Leia, who is our 3D artist and narrative and sound designer. Mihai, who will. Elisa, our Unity developer, so the person that is most proficient in coding. And Thomas as a narrative designer, a game writer, and 3D artist. I will present tonight, and the other 4 will be in the chat answering any questions that you might have. Please go to the next slide. Yeah, so the game that we wanted to create at the beginning is that you are an intergalactical explorer traveling through space, visiting different planets, and reconnecting them by repairing vital objects on these planets. Our 3 goals with that were to promote the repair culture in an entertaining way, work with humor instead of threats and lessons like, oh, your planet will die if you don't do this. It's not exactly what we didn't want to do. And create a cool game with a purpose for the Repair Cafe. Next slide, please. The actual thing that we are going to create, because we don't have as much time to actually create the entire game, we're currently working on that functions as a tutorial planet to the game. It will display a sense of community on this sole planet instead of having the different planets connected. So you will see that so to say NPCs, so non-player characters, need each other to help each other's help to fix objects and items that they have. We will have unique and interesting NPCs that are not necessarily human. They will have human features, but they are not human. And we want to showcase a gamified and humorous approach to a real-life problem. Next slide, please. As everything, and as we said before, everything starts with research. And so we have looked into a target audience, which will be 16 to 20 years old people and casual gamers, so people that are not as familiar with games as we are. Which is also the purpose of what I said earlier, that the characters will not necessarily be humans, but they will have human features. We looked into some competitors, of course, to see what they do, how they convey messages in their games, and what sticks with the people. Why do people keep playing these games? And we figured out that an interesting progression system keeps players engaged in the game, and builds a basis along with motivation to shape human behavior and reform or form habits. We also looked into audio in adventure games specifically, because the game is supposed to be an adventure game, and how that influences the player experience, as well as how gravity works in games, because otherwise you would walk over a planet and then at some point just fall down and you couldn't walk around the entire planet. Sorry, next slide, please. Then we wanted to showcase a bit of our progress and how far we are currently in. So as you can see here, we have a bit of reference art to showcase to you. On the left side, you see a factory, which will be one of the big main points in the game, which the player can enter, repair some stuff in the factory to fix another big object on this planet, which I will tell you a bit later. On the right side, you can see our player character, which is a small robot with the name Patch, who works for a company called Fix. And an NPC, which will be presented by Macaques on the planet Kettler 22T. And if you go to the next slide, we see why the planet is called Kettler, because the main object that you need to repair is a giant kettle, which will not work anymore. You need to figure out why. Therefore, also you need to go to the factory that I said that we showed before. In the middle, you can see how far we are currently in. You see we have a a planet blockout. So we went into the engine where we make the game with and created a couple of blocks, placed them around so that we can see how big the world feels when we put the player in and can walk around. And on the right side, you see a bit of concept art, how the village on the planet could look in different times. One when it's a bit colder, when it's a bit warmer. On the next slide, you would technically see videos if this would still be a PowerPoint instead of a PDF, but that's fine. We're getting a bit technical, but I'm not going to bore you with too much technical details. I'm just going to explain a bit of what we have so far. On the left side, we have a save system, so you can leave the game at any point and come back, and you will continue where you left off. In the middle, we wanted to showcase that we have two abilities that help with platforming and puzzle solving in the game, which then lead to showcasing, or not showcasing, but which lead to repair the object. And on the right side, you could have seen the gravity system. On the following slide, we have 3 examples of the base interaction. On the left side, it shows that you can collect items. In the middle, you can carry items, so different bigger objects instead of just simple repair materials such as screws, for example. The base interaction for carrying would mean you can carry bigger object like wooden planks. And on the right side, we have the base interaction with objects such as computers or buttons or doors and NPCs, so the non-player characters, and you can talk to them. On the next slide, please. We have a short timeline of what we still have left to do. On the 16th of May, we end our production phase, which means we should have all the code done. And then, we start with the polishing phase. We fix our bugs. If there are any, we make the game look pretty, basically. On the 4th of June, we have a final demonstration at the Repair Cafe in Amsterdam. And on the 13th of June, we have to hand in the project for university. Followed by a final demonstration on the 26th or 27th of June at the university, which is unfortunately not open to the general public. The only person or the only people that are allowed to join are Rineke and Martine. And then on the next slide, yes, there you go. We have a demo version that should be live on itch right now. So if you either scan this QR code, or my team should also post the link in the chat, click on that link. You should get to our itch.io page where you can download the game and read a bit more about what the game is about. It is a prototype. I want to mention that again. It is not a finished game, so it looks and feels still very much in production currently. Just what I mentioned, what I want to mention beforehand. Also, just a heads up, your PC might give you a this could be a virus error. It isn't. I swear it is not. It is just with everything that is not downloaded by a proper launcher, which it unfortunately isn't. It will give you that response, but you can run the game. You will not get a virus. We don't want to give you a virus, we swear. We just need to mention that before people think that is the case. Yeah, and that is it. If you go to the next slide, you see our wonderful thank you slide. Thanks for giving us the opportunity, and thanks for listening.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that clear presentation. And the concept that WALL-E seems to come into my mind, walking around the different worlds.
Yeah.
And looking, and it is certainly a different way to engage maybe young people. So there's some sort of interesting synergies there with the young people engagement. So we're now going to sort of move into further questions and discussion. And I don't know, Martin, if you wanted to kick off with any comments before maybe I'm now on full screen so I can see the different names of your colleagues, and I'll pronounce them wrongly, Yasmin and Riendelk. Sorry. Rieneke, sorry.
So, well, maybe I would like to say thank you to all the speakers for your presentations and taking the time to make them and present them and informing us of what you're doing. It's been really interesting to hear from all of you. And I'm looking forward to playing the game, naturally. Yeah, I'm impressed with the work you've all been doing. So thank you very much for that.
So, do we have any questions that have come through in the chat?
Yes, we do have some questions. And let's start with the two. There are two questions for Peter, of which the first one is, where will the survey be posted? From Ken Vickerson.
Yes, hi. The idea is that the survey will be done the same way as we did the other surveys, and you'll get an email from Martine from us, who will be who kindly volunteered. I don't know if she remembers this, but she did kindly volunteer to run the survey again for us.
Yeah, we will send emails to our network inviting all of you to join and answer the survey questions, and then we'll also keep you informed on the results and where to find a report. I think we'll publish it on our website, but we'll definitely keep you posted.
Yep.
And this time we'll include Belgium.
Yes, we will.
And the other, you said there were two questions. What was the other one?
Yes, there's another question. Let's see. Have you got the time to let the primary school network know about your PhD project? From Dick Wallace.
Yes, of course. Except I don't know who the primary school network is. So by all means,
maybe that was for Beth.
It could have been for Beth. I don't know.
No, the
I don't
name
think so.
of Peter
All
is
right.
in the question.
It was Dick Wallace.
Right. Well, I mean, do feel free to email me. I'm peter@petercounter.com, and I'll be able to find me there.
Maybe you can put your email in the chat, Peter.
I will do that.
Yeah. Any more questions?
There's one general question by Susie Former, and she asks, has there been a movement towards or info about how to turn our repair data into carbon credits, also known as dollars or euros?
Well, was that a general question to... I don't think there has been such a project. I wouldn't know how to do that anyway.
No, I mean, again, not to my knowledge. I think that's sort of stretching the envelope a little bit, particularly when we're at an early stage on data, and maybe we don't want to necessarily try and mix apples and oranges or whatever the other phrases in other languages.
Yeah, difficult question. There's one also from Erik Putnam and Peter Uithoven. They are curious whether they can join the 4th of June at the headquarters of the Repair Cafe in Amsterdam for the demonstration of the game. And I think that's fine if we have a little show, but that's up to the students, I think, as well. Niklas, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, of course, I would be fine with that. I would have given the question to you guys because I wouldn't know if that's fine for you guys from the Repair Cafe. But for us, I think that's okay. Yeah.
I see no problem. So let's talk about this later.
All right.
As I think everybody's been so disciplined with not shouting, I think we've got two hands up from Dan and Terza. I pronounce names wrongly, probably, and maybe others, and David. So maybe we can, if you guys, Dan, can just, if you've got a short, succinct question, or please fire now. If you do have a question, if you don't, take your hand down. Right. Okay. Well, I'm not hearing any activity from Dan. Well, maybe we from Terza. Do you have a question? Or it's a legacy hand is a terminology that I've come across from other webinars. So if not, sorry, go ahead.
I did see one question from Terza in the chat.
Yeah.
Let's see. She asked, oh, there we go. There was, can you share the screw loose but solid charts?
That's a question to Nicholas, I think.
I think so too.
Nope, that was for the previous presentation.
Yeah, I think it is from our presentation. If you want, you can leave us your mail in the chat, and we can send you the mind map that was on this slide. No problem.
Just whilst you're on the line, given that you mentioned that a lot of the expats are younger, I was quite surprised to see Facebook as the main preferred social media. I mean, for us in our repair cafe, we have an older demographic. Absolutely, it is the preferred medium. But I would have expected with the younger people for Instagram to be higher. So did you have any comments on that?
Yes, our research focused on not student expats, not students that have come from other countries to study in the Netherlands, but from older people that have come here to work but are still expats, meaning above the age of 25 to 35. Right. in that age. So in that age, they still use Facebook a lot. Of course, it may also have to do with the fact that we only used Facebook to distribute our survey. This may also play a role into that, but we believe that this makes sense from an age perspective because most of our answers were from people in their 30s, approximately.
Yeah, and if I may add to that, we actually did research before we actually put the survey on Facebook, what kind of communication method would be best. One of our team members, Six, she interviewed like many experts that she just happened to know. And yeah, it turned out that at least, of course, it's not like it was not a very broad, a very big sample that we had, but it turned out that Facebook seems to be the best way to connect with other experts. So the ability to like found a group within Facebook, yeah, seems to be greater than another social network. So I think, yeah, Facebook just seems to be a bit more, yeah, feasible to reaching out to other experts and connecting with them.
I mean, you remind me that it actually it's. I think in different countries there's different propensity to use different social media networks, and I think UK, particularly for younger people, is absolutely 100% Instagram. Whereas I think it's differentiating very much to older groups now using Facebook. So but I also remember when we did some work in Norway that even younger groups use Facebook, if I remember rightly. So it's not a constant, perhaps. So that's I think David Bradley had put his hand up. Maybe that's another legacy hand.
Yes, no, it's not. It's me on my late husband's Teams thing. I actually have posted this in the chat. I was wondering whether Peter was thinking about the difference that I seem to be hearing today between those repair cafes that have a large population area, and mine is a very rural one. I'm in Devon in England, and there are a lot of rural ones around here. And I wondered if that has an impact. You mentioned yours is mostly older people, Martin. So is ours. Our repairers are all quite old. I say that as one of the older ones. We're talking retired people who have the time to do this and who are very interested. And I also wondered if there was going to be, for me, the repair cafe in our village has very much brought the village together. So the social aspects of it have been really important, especially the cakes and the tea. Thank you.
So I think there's something there around population size, and maybe at least a comment from my side here is that if I remember rightly from at least the historic stuff, Martine, that the biggest concentrations of repair cafes were in Amsterdam, Ghent, and Berlin, where there were like at least historically 5-something plus years ago, 20 or 30, maybe that's even more now. So there is something around cities, maybe, or some cities. Is that something you've observed?
Well, naturally, in cities, there are more repair cafes because there are more communities and more neighborhoods. And but in the Netherlands, we also have rural areas with many repair cafes. So it's just up to the people who live there who may be interested in starting one. And my experience is that it doesn't make a big difference whether people live in the countryside or in a city.
I think the link back to the question is we've picked up on cases where the setting up of a repair cafe in a small village has brought people together, as the questioner highlighted. What I guess the other observation is that in the larger cities, etc., maybe there's more what's the right word? Some of the repairers travel and also volunteer their time at other repair cafes that might be a bit more difficult with more dispersed rural communities.
Yeah, just a quick comment from me on the research side. It's clear that if you're in a rural community, then quite often the repair cafes run less often. So you'll find them maybe once a quarter or once maybe only twice a year because there's simply less people. But there's also, I was just in over the last couple of days, I've been in Margate in East Kent, which is a kind of a retirement town. And there are a few towns in England where people go to retire. So they have very large retired populations. And there doesn't seem to be a preponderance of repair cafes there, despite the fact that it's mostly, if you look at the demographics of people who repair and people who turn up with goods to repair, a lot of them are in the retired demographic. So it seems to be the dormitory of the retirement towns would be an ideal place to go and set up repair cafes. You've got retired people both to bring stuff and to repair it.
I think just another quick comment. I think it's still to be researched, perhaps, the issue with the villages, because there certainly are examples of villages that, or small, villages that I'm aware of that have set up and claim to have very high levels of repair activity. And then what they also then do is set up separate sessions. They also run repairs over into other sessions. So it's actually more regular than quarterly. So I think that's probably an area that needs further exploration. I mean, I see we've got 7 minutes, so 7 minutes to get any questions in. Do we have any more questions in, ladies?
Not to my knowledge. Oh, you're.
Oh, go for it.
No. I haven't seen any new questions. Did you?
I saw one more question from Annie van Genuchten. And this question is, are there any ideas or research possible to have repairs in events or structural in shop centers? I think this is more a general question.
And the question
say-
is whether there are more ideas?
Yeah, more ideas or research to have repairs in event or structural in shop centers.
You had a suggestion for an answer?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say in events there is a large demand for it. I work in in Amsterdam. I organize a repair event once a month in a different place, and we get a lot of questions from people like, "Oh, can you do it here on this event as well?" The only thing is that when you go to a more like an event space with older people, there's also like a lot of noise around you, and it's not always the space for everyone. But I would say there's a large demand for it, at least in Amsterdam. And on research, I'm not sure. Yeah, the shopping centers, maybe you have a clearer answer for that, Martina?
No, not really. It's just something that we saw emerge in Utrecht, of course. And then I think, well, what we see is that the authorities are becoming more interested in the idea and more focused on the subject. So I think it could be, become sort of a trend in the future, but I don't have any specific information about that yet.
I think in the UK we haven't seen it as such. There may have been some pop-up events, maybe where there's some spare retail outlets. There certainly was one example of some specialist repair, features in a Swedish shopping centre. I think they took off with a number of different aspects. I'm not sure if it was a repair cafe per se, but it was maybe a repair cafe. Maybe they were also selling refurbished products and stuff like that, like the hub thing that you were mentioning or touching on, Martine.
Yeah, I know that in Sweden there is this well-known shop.
Yeah,
which I don't remember the name of now.
yeah. Something like Repair Tunen or something like that. Some name, something like that.
Retuna, that's it.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. But I mean, certainly a challenge in the UK at the moment is because of changing shopping patterns. You're seeing a lot of closing down of shops in towns. So that's always struck me as a potential opportunity, spaces where you could run, maybe run variations on repair cafes. I don't know. Are you seeing challenges with town centres where shops are closing because of online shopping and stuff like that in the Netherlands, for example?
Yes, we have that problem too. Yeah. So there is only, we should all stop buying new stuff and start repairing more stuff, which will not solve the problem of the shopping centers, but will give more space to repair activities in shopping centers.
No, absolutely. And just a quick question back to you, Martine, is within that regional network event you mentioned, were the attendees to the event from local government coming along to get more of an idea about repair cafes with a view to, launching or facilitating, catalyzing repair cafes?
Among other things, but it was a broader event. They were also talking about how to set up other repair facilities and how to even start thinking about repairing, because the idea of repair as a possibility is not on people's minds. And I thought this was very interesting development to see that the regional authorities feel that it should be on the regional officials' minds more.
Right. Unless there's any more questions, we've got 2 minutes to go. I will personally just say thank you very much to everybody who's been involved in the event, and I will leave Martine to make the final comment.
Yeah, well, thank you, Martin, for organizing all this, and thank you all for joining this webinar and exchanging ideas. And the chat has been very lively. I think we'll share the chat later, so you can read back what was said, and we'll keep you posted on any results and on future webinars with new themes. And if you want to discuss a specific theme, let us know, and then we can definitely organize that. And well, once again, thank you all for contributing, for being here, and of course, for contributing to this movement from wherever you are. Thank you, and keep up the good work.
Cheers, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.